So what's behind the slow rise of foreign brews in China? I'm joined live from Toronto by Beaumont. He's co-author of the Pocket Beer Guide, a book series on the world's beers. So why are foreign brewers finding a little bit more success in China, do you think?
Well, I think it was an inevitable thing that would happen eventually. You've got to remember that China's advancement in the beer market globally has been meteoric. They've really come from nothing to being by far the world's largest beer producer, but with still a rather low per capita beer consumption. So the rest of the world has been following this and looking at it. And when the big brewers start to see, or even some of the smaller brewers start to see the premium beer market advancing a little bit, then they saw their opportunity to start coming in and getting involved in this marketplace.
So China is the world's largest market for alcohol. A portion of that, of course, is beer. How different are the taste buds of beer drinkers in China versus perhaps someone where you are in Canada or here in the United States?
Well, they're not that different. They're just about 30 or 40 years behind. If you go back to the 1960s, 1970s, Canadians and Americans, we were drinking a lot of light lager without a whole lot of flavor in it. And that's what the vast majority of Chinese beer is today. So what you're seeing now is a similar progression. Chinese beer drinkers advancing their palates and saying, you know what, there are flavors that we're interested in that aren't that very, very light tasting, easy drinking lager.
Yeah, light tasting. So how much variation is there in the taste between the big brands of beer in China?
I think there's as much variation as you see in the big brands in North America or the big brands in Europe. You know, different breweries have their different strengths, their different weaknesses. Tsingtao beer, I think, has much more of a robust flavor profile than something like Snow. So there are definite differences between the beers, but they're not differences compared to, say, going from a light lager to an India Pale Ale or going from a light lager to even a Pale Ale. Those are dramatic flavor differences. We're talking something more subtle here.
Yeah, you talked about Tsingtao. Here in the U.S., for example, you go into any Chinese restaurant, you're likely to find it. How popular do you think Chinese beer is going to become in the United States?
Well, it's a very difficult market to exploit these days because there are over 5,300 breweries in the United States, because there are these two companies, Anheuser-Busch InBev and Miller Coors, that control 80% of the marketplace just between the two of them. It doesn't leave a lot of room for newcomers. That said, you know, there are a lot of Chinese restaurants that are pouring Tsingtao beer. There may be an opportunity for another Chinese brand to get in there and say, hey, you know, it's not a huge export market for us, but we need to have a presence there, and we want to have that niche marketplace.
And so just a few moments ago, I noted that less than 2% of China's beer market is controlled by foreign companies. As per capita incomes go up, do you expect that to change at all?
Absolutely. The more money there is to spend on beer, the more interested export-driven international brewers would be in China. China has been very much a closed beer market for a long time, been very difficult to get into the marketplace. Now with the premium market starting to grow a bit, I think that you're going to see a lot more breweries, large and small, looking at China and trying to figure out a way to get in, especially into the cities, Shanghai and Beijing, the big places where there are masses of people and a lot of tightly geographically confined beer sales.
Beaumont joining us from Toronto. Thanks so much.